on Clinton from Assange emails show. Now that may sound familiar because Stone has long bragged about outreach to WikiLeaks. What's new is these leaked emails revealing how far Stone went in trying to get specific dirt on Clinton from WikiLeaks. The Journal reporting on Stone's emails with radio host Randy Credico, one of the few Americans to interview Assange. Credico broke his silence about all this in an interview on The Beat, alleging Stone was a liar. And given these new reports that impact Stone's role in the Mueller probe, Randy Credico is back with me tonight. Now, whatever one thinks of the players in this drama, here's why it matters. The new emails may shed light on where Mueller's headed, tackling the question of whether Roger Stone just hyped his WikiLeaks contacts but never came close to a crime, or whether Stone ever took actions that could implicate him in an election conspiracy. One of the newly leaked emails shows the two discussing a future batch of stolen Clinton emails and noting they could not ask Assange for, quote, favors every other day. A former Clinton aide who was hacked responding to these leaked emails with this message: I am filled with rage. And that's not all. The leaked emails go past the campaign and into this year, showing Stone worrying that Credico was wearing a wire for Mueller. And Credico had also proclaimed he would not comply with investigators.
Hillary Clinton's two aides invoked the Fifth Amendment. Were they lying last year? So I invoked it because I do not want to sit down with that committee. I do not believe in that committee. I am not happy with Adam Schiff.
That was a big claim, but like some other witnesses who threatened not to testify, we can report tonight Credico did back down partially. He did talk to Congressman Adam Schiff's staff this Wednesday, and he joins us for his first interview since then for this exclusive. Randy Credico, thanks for being here.
Always a thrill to be in the hot seat on The Beat.
You weren't going to talk to Schiff, but you did Wednesday. Why'd you change and what'd you discuss?
Well, I ran across him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. We had a nice little exchange talking about Pasadena, where he's from and where I'm from, Pomona, actually. And he said, why don't we talk? So I said, we'll have an informal talk off the record. I'm not going to go in front of a stenographer or one of your lawyers and write everything down. So he says, fine. So they set it up. I went down there last Wednesday to have an informal, off-the-record discussion, some background stuff, because as you know, this entire affair has totally destroyed my life in so many ways.
What did they want to know?
Well, they wanted to know everything that you wanted to know. They wanted to know if I was the best. So I said, hey, look,
They wanted to know about the role you played between Roger Stone and Assange.
Yes, and I said, here's what I said to them. You're wasting your time chasing rainbows on Roger Stone. Stop giving him so much attention. He thrives off of this. I understand this story, but it's very misleading. The 8 emails that lead into it, Miss Halliday omitted.
Well, so, let's go into it. Let me read from some of it.
I sent you them today because I'm not ashamed of this.
Let me go into it. Okay. There's one that says, please ask Assange for any state or HRC email from August 10th to August 30th with Roger Stone saying, why do we assume WikiLeaks has released everything they have? What does that say?
You're leaving out the very first email.
What does it say to you?
What does it say to me? He sent me an email about some guy by the name of Dr. Paul who met with somebody in Libya that had something to do with Hillary Clinton. I looked at it. He wanted me to put somebody on the show. I said, I'll put somebody on the show. I'll look at it. And then he says, no, you got to confirm it first. I said, well, Assange might be on my show. See if WikiLeaks, I said, look at WikiLeaks' website and see if it's there.
The reason that this is of investigative interest is whether Roger was hyping when he said that he was using you to get to Assange or whether there was some of that going on. These emails make it look like you two are discussing specific emails at specific times from Assange.
I understand how it looks. That was my first conversation with Roger Stone about Julian Assange, and it came, when did it come? Like September 18th or something like that, right?
September 18th, 2016.
Yes, the previous 3 months we had no discussion on Julian Assange or WikiLeaks.
So you maintain, I just want to be clear, and you just spoke to Adam Schiff's people, you still maintain that Roger was hyping or lying when he said you were the intermediary?
Yes, because
now let's go to part 2. Now we're going to part 2. Hold on.
He wanted me to get this to Julian Assange.
So we're going to part 2, which is what people do during an investigation, which, as we've noted on this program, can be stressful. I'm going to read here.
I'm not stressed at all. I feel great.
You feel good. Good. I'm going to read to you.
Safe. Here.
I'm going to read to you something that Roger Stone allegedly said to you. Quote, I'm going to take that dog away from you. Nothing you can do about it. I'm paraphrasing. I will prove to the world you're a liar. Is Stone, in your view, trying to threaten you so you will change your account of his activities in 2016?
I think he didn't like me being on your show the first time. Why didn't he put that email? He's the one who sent that email, by the way, to Halliday. I sent the previous 8 emails. He's afraid I'm going to unload on him.
Why is he, let me ask you this, why is he bringing your dog, who we have on the screen, why is he bringing your dog into this?
Because he's a sick man. He is delusional.
Let me bring in Attorney Maya Wiley, who often joins us for this part of our program, the witness discussion part. And Maya, take a listen to Roger Stone, who said something very unusual, even for him and for anyone in this situation, on Meet the Press this Sunday. Take a listen.
It is not inconceivable now that Mr. Mueller and his team may seek to conjure up some extraneous crime pertaining to my business, or maybe not even pertaining to the 2016 election.
How do you make sense of what Roger Stone is doing and saying, and what Mr. Credico alleges today after having spoke to House investigators, which is that he believes Stone is trying to pressure him?
Well, I certainly think if Stone's threatening to steal his dog, that's obviously some form of communication of aggression.
Yes.
I think it's very clear that Roger Stone has made several statements that seem to be contradicted by the emails that he sent, and that may get him in trouble in terms of perjury. For instance, he has said publicly that he didn't have advanced knowledge of the hacks. Then we have Sam Nunberg and another unnamed source saying he did. But then he also constantly stated that he was only trying to confirm the existence of emails, not that he, and never suggested that he was specifically seeking specific types of emails. And what this exchange seems to indicate is that he actually was looking for particular information.
So you're saying, from an investigative view, the particularity that is revealed here could be bad for Stone?
Correct. And add to that, remember that Donald Trump during the campaign was saying that he did not support the attacks in Libya and going after Muammar Gaddafi. And Hillary Clinton said, that's a lie, you made these statements. But there was a tug of war going on about the position of Hillary Clinton in Libya, and then we have this period in which he's actually trying to seek emails related to Libya from a particular period of time in August 2011. So you have to wonder, are there conversations happening?
What else is filling out that picture?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why is he looking for that?
I want to ask another thing about Mr. Credico, and I mean no disrespect in this. I always try to treat everyone fairly. But Maya, what do you think of, and you'll get a chance to respond, the pattern we see of some of these individuals in the orbit who are of investigative interest, or who at least the congressional committees want to speak to, and some of them initially make a big showing of saying they will not speak or comply, and then they end up doing so?
Well, look, I think it's very hard not to comply with a subpoena because you put yourself in legal jeopardy if you don't. I think they also, what initially happens is people don't want to. They say they don't want to. It's understandable. It's scary. And then at a certain point start to see that there may be some benefit to actually cooperating rather than fighting.
Okay, the reason why I went down there, I went there for a specific reason. I went down there to ask him, if you want to get to the bottom of all this, then go to London. I had gone there with a mandate from Assange for Mr. Schiff to go over there and interview him. I got the okay from Assange for him to do that.
What? You have Julian Assange willing to speak to Adam Schiff's committee?
Yes. He told me to talk to Schiff.
When did he tell you that?
Just before I went down there. It was a secret mission. That's the reason why I went down there. I didn't go there to testify.
When? Before Wednesday?
Yes. Yes.
And why does Assange, in your view, want to speak to Adam Schiff?
Because he can clear it all up. He's ready to talk to Adam Schiff. If he wants to go over there, he's waiting for him.
This is what we do call burying the lead, because we've been speaking to you a little bit earlier today about your interview, but this is news to me. If that's the case, did Adam Schiff's people seem interested in doing that interview?
They said it's well noted. And then I gave him some general stuff. I didn't give him a lot of information, just some background on Roger Stone's character, his personality, his megalomania mindset. And I said, now forget about Stone, forget about me. Just jump to the chase and see Assange. He will see you. I got the permission. I got the communication.
And why does Julian Assange?
And I kept that quiet.
Why does Julian Assange want to do that?
Because, well, he's ready to show that there is no collusion. Me, Stone, he's willing to sit down with Schiff and be interviewed.
Does he have any other material that hasn't been released that would support his side of this?
I think so. I think that...
What kind of material would that be?
Well, I don't know, because he doesn't give up his sources. He doesn't give out information. He doesn't telegraph stuff.
He doesn't talk to a lot of people for whatever reason. Yes. He does talk to you repeatedly.
Yes, I was able... I can tell you that there's communication between me and him, and they said, let's go with this. I asked Schiff, his staff, and they said it's noted, and we'll see what happens.
Did you tell Roger Stone that Assange is willing to talk to Adam Schiff?
No, I didn't tell.
So you guys are not coordinating?
We are not talking at all, Roger Stone and I. We really are not. He has that thing about my dog is mild to the kind of harassment I've received from Roger Stone over the last couple of weeks.
Maya Wiley, what do you make of this additional statement by Mr. Credico that Assange now is claiming he would be willing to speak to Adam Schiff's investigators?
I'm shocked, because I can't imagine Julian Assange, who actually remember that he is in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy, because he's worried about extradition. Mm-hmm. He's now been being pressured out of the embassy. They disconnected him from the internet. This is something that has been of concern to him, being forced to leave. He does not want to be extradited to the United States. And if, in fact, there's an investigation around a conspiracy to defraud the United States, Julian Assange may well be considered a co-conspirator, or at least a target
potentially,
around
right. It would seem to be adverse to his interest, and he seems to be very thoughtful about a lot of these issues. That is to say, he understands how it works. My last question to you then is it possible that he is just trolling you? And
No. I have very solid communications, and he and people around him want to set this up, and it's been put on the plate, and it's up to Mr. Schiff. If he's serious, he will go. Well, he's got the credibility. If Nixon went to China, if the president is going to meet with the North Korean president, certainly Schiff has the credibility and the chops to go over there and meet with Mr. Assange.
Well, Mr. Credico,
That's a breaking news story.
You know people who know people, and you could have been anywhere in the world tonight, and you're here with us, and we appreciate that.
I broke it on your show, okay?
Maya, as well. Thanks to both of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Much happening, but we have a lot more. What's Trump really trying to do when he undermines the free press? We've jumped into the archives on the backstory.
Do this interview with somebody else.
We talked about this yesterday on the phone.
This is exactly do the interview with somebody else.
Also tonight, Alec Baldwin.
Maybe that's done it. I don't know. You'll be happy to know copperheads are the only poisonous snakes found in the district, but their bites rarely cause death. See, rarely. Everybody, come on now. What are you really all so worried about? There's just a chance you could die. If you spot one this holiday weekend, the Park Service says remain calm and move away slowly. But Lordy, watch your step. Because as President Trump believes, a menacing deep state may be trying to take you down as well. That's all for tonight. We'll be back Monday with more MTV Daily. And if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press right on NBC. Have a great holiday weekend. The Beat with Ari Melber starts right now. Copperhead snake free, though, I promise you. Good evening, Ari.
Good evening, Chuck. Thank you very much. Tonight we have a very special show, and we begin with breaking news. New heat on Michael Cohen as he's busted for a Trump Tower Russia meeting that has never been disclosed before. Michael Cohen secretly met with a sanctioned Russian billionaire just 11 days before Donald Trump's inauguration, a meeting that was publicly exposed today and is now under investigative scrutiny. And there's video. Cohen met with Victor Vekselberg at Trump Tower. Now, if that name rings a bell tonight, it's because it is the very same oligarch questioned by Mueller's investigators, the same oligarch behind the company that funneled $500,000 to Michael Cohen's shell company that, yes, paid Stormy Daniels. Now, the context is key. Vekselberg is considered so clearly and blatantly close to Putin that even the Trump administration has sanctioned him. He's not a Russian government employee per se. He's actually something much more important. A supremely wealthy Russian government fixer who does things for Putin, like spending millions on Fabergé eggs that were supposed to come back to Russia for a Kremlin display case. So keep that in mind when you recall that Michael Cohen has not only disclaimed any outreach to Russia, but he's also said he doesn't talk to Russian government people.
I'm telling you, I was not in Prague. They claim that they have photos of me with some Russian government people. I said, produce the photos.
Do you have any, did you see any hookers while you were in Prague?
I've never been to Prague, and I've never been to Russia.
Release the photos. Well, look at it like this tonight. If you string enough photos together, you get moving images. And here are some photos to release. Here's the video. This is airing on MSNBC for the first time tonight, showing the Russian government-linked oligarch and his cousin entering Trump Tower to meet with Michael Cohen. Now, since they were caught on tape, you're looking at it, there aren't really any denials on this part of the story tonight. Instead, Vekselberg's line to the New York Times is that this meeting was about a, quote, mutual desire to strengthen Russia's relations with the U.S. under Trump. And Cohen would go on to get money from that firm linked to Vekselberg. And the very same week, Donald Trump was still publicly touting Cohen, whether he was going to get an administration job or not.
Michael Cohen, Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. I have no dealings with Russia. I have no deals in Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've...
Now that was happening, those statements there at that press conference, during the transition in that key time that we know the meeting took place. Trump arguing that basically he'd stayed away from Russia since his last trip in 2013. So here is what's big tonight. Forget all the Trump conspiracy theories. That's the pushback. Look at why the temperature is so high in the White House. This news adds to the evidence that Russia was more than willing to come to Trump and to his very close confidant that he was praising in public that very week. I'm joined by Maya Wiley, an attorney and former counsel to the mayor of New York and former Vermont governor and DNC chair Howard Dean. Maya, what does this mean for the investigation?
Well, basically, it means that Michael Cohen is in deep trouble, because there have been clear connections. We already knew that there was an email exchange between him and Felix Sater in 2015 when they were trying to create the Moscow Trump Hotel, right? That he could get them to Putin, that he could help create that relationship, and that they could get their boy elected, right? So there actually are emails that suggest the relationship that includes both business dealings and winning the presidency. We don't know more about what that means, but now you have the fact that he has close meetings. Remember that Vekselberg was a person who whose cousin later actually was supporting the Trump presidential campaign, supported the inauguration, and that he was at the inauguration with Trump himself.
Right, you're talking about Intrater, who's a big part of this money trail.
He's Vekselberg's cousin.
And his cousin, so this is all in the family. And then consider the fact that we don't know everyone that Mueller's interviewed, but we do have a growing list from the leaks that come from a lot of witnesses. And so what's fascinating is Bob Mueller has focused mostly on Americans and a lot of people involved in the Trump campaign, which makes sense. But when it comes to foreigners, one of the people he has interviewed is this same person that we just showed caught on tape in this video. New York Times noting earlier this year, Mueller's investigators stopped Vekselberg at an airport when he was flying on a private jet in New York. Mueller's investigators interviewed Mr. Intrater twice, focusing on his dealings with, quote, Mr. Cohen. It seems that as more comes out, this is a bigger part of the Russia collusion probe than was initially understood.
That's absolutely right, because what we need for a conspiracy, which is essentially what we'd be talking about, is an agreement between more than one person. Trump would have to have some knowledge and connection to it, but he wouldn't have had to take any direct action personally necessarily. If he knew about it, he knew about the criminal intent, if there was criminal intent. And so this is some of the things that put us much more closely in that circle of potential conspiracy, which really is the brass ring for Mueller.
The brass ring. Howard Dean, that's a lot of the law. There's also the politics, which is the extraordinary way that the Republican National Committee is keeping Cohen on board. Take a look at this new today.
Michael Cohen, last time we spoke, you told me he was still working as a deputy finance chair for the RNC. Is that still the case?
It is still the case. You know, there's ongoing litigation, and we'll take it step by step, but yes, he is still.
Howard?
This is very dangerous. Trump has really infected the entire Republican Party with his swamp. He is the swamp, and he has brought the swamp to Washington. The thing that's astonishing about it is how uncareful he is. Mueller is following the money around. When you follow the money around, if this Russian oligarch who was close to Putin gave $500,000 to Cohen and Cohen used it for Trump's benefit, that's obstruction of justice. I think the RNC is now at risk of being charged with obstruction of justice for hiring Cohen in what most likely is a no-show job to keep his head above water expense-wise while he gets investigated. These guys, we're all talking about this really confusing stuff for the general public on television. Mueller has a paper trail which shows a hell of a lot of money being laundered. I got to believe this is really dangerous for the Republican Party.
Right, and the fact that maybe the Republican Party feels that they're in deep enough that it looks bad to get Cohen out because it's a kind of an admission, but keeping him in also obviously looks bad. But I want you both to stay with me. I want to add Clarence Page, a Chicago Tribune columnist and one of our Washington experts. Clarence, there's payola, there's pay to play, and then there's actual chargeable corruption. How is this playing in Washington, a town that does have low standards, but still?
Well, if I can paraphrase the president, who knew that collusion charges could be so complicated? Indeed, we seem to be seeing tentacles going out in various directions here. We knew that Mr. Trump and his family were very much involved with Russian financiers, but what we're learning is how many different branches there are here, and also Michael Cohen's central role in connecting parts of the money flow. What we don't know is how much the president knew and when did he know it, if I can borrow a Watergate period phrase. But that may be the central question that we're really poking at here. Meanwhile, as we can see as we move up the ladder, people like Michael Cohen are putting themselves into some complex jeopardy here.
Yeah, and Andrew Intrater, who Maya Wiley was mentioning as one of the people who basically carries out what this Russian billionaire wants to have happen, oddly kind of telling the New York Times about what it was like visiting Michael Cohen during that period. I remember walking in and seeing lots of boxes because Michael was packing up his office and looking forward to hanging out his own shingle, Mr. Intrater said. Clarence, what do you make of that? Or do they just not care? And so after they throw their money around or engage in whatever various levels of pseudo-collusion or not, they'll just talk to American media about it.
Well, Cohen certainly did have quite a growing empire there of connections, and we're learning more all the time here. And he was operating right out of Trump Tower, in addition. So it does look like it's certainly part of the Trump empire. But what we haven't really established is how firm the connections are and how much the president knew at that time as he was becoming president.
Howard Dean, does any of this stick to the president politically? Because even if it's not all the basis for charges, it's literally a lot of the things he accused Hillary Clinton of. Or is this such a hyper-polarized environment and the Russia probe has a legal component, which we always try to cover in a clear legal way here, but is obviously politically viewed through quite a prism out there?
It very much sticks to the president. I'll give you a fascinating example. National Public Radio had a story this morning talking about the schism between conservative Catholics and the evangelicals. The evangelical so-called Christians are all in with Trump, regardless of his amorality. The Catholics are not, and the bishops are very upset about his immigration policy, his policies towards poor people, and so the morality of Trump has infected his support. He was helped by a lot of working class people, many of whom were Catholic. He's going to get a much smaller percentage of the Catholic vote in 2018 and 2020 as a result of, I think, the bishops' disgust with this kind of behavior.
Clarence?
Well, I've covered Chicago politics for a lot of years, just fascinated by the complexities of the corruption, but also by how many Chicago citizens, especially under the first mayor, Daley, supported the mayor as long as he got the garbage cans picked up and the snow cleared from the streets. This is how Trump supporters are judging him now. They're looking at the positive impact on their lives.
Is that instead of clearing the garbage, it's just pressuring the NFL and anti-speech policy? Is that the proverbial garbage in this analogy?
Yeah, I remember during the Watergate scandal, most folks in the Midwest didn't seem to really know about the complexities of it, didn't really seem to care until Nixon resigned. And then everybody said, oh, this was serious, wasn't it? And then began to figure out just why the president resigned. That's where we are right now with this new series of scandals as they come out. They are complicated, and folks wonder where is all of this going to end. So in the meantime, Trump and his supporters are playing on the public's impatience, saying Mueller's been at this too long and he needs to stop. Well, that's just not going to happen. But I think we are going to have to try to pay attention here to these complexities.
Well, and Maya, I think complexity, although it's a fair point from our panelists here, but I think complexity can become a kind of a dodge. If you're selling out the government for personal benefit, the way you do it might be complex because you might be a sneaky lawyer.
Right.
I mean, that's fine, but I think people understand what it means to sell out.
The story is fairly straightforward. The facts that would be necessary to prove it are the complicated part. So if it's remember that one of the things that happened in Watergate is there was a smoking gun. It was the tapes.
Right.
And that really wasn't really the obstruction of justice charges that really got Nixon. It was the fact that he was on tape clearly engaging in a criminal with a criminal intent, right? And I think part of the complexity here is, going back to what Clarence is saying, is where and how are we going to get information about Trump's direct connection to what Mueller is investigating? But the point here is there's so much that points to it, right? So if we have Donald Trump Jr. actively saying, I want those emails that might implicate Hillary Clinton, and then Trump, part of his obstruction is he's not just saying, oh, I'm going to fire Comey. He's actually changing the story about why he was even meeting with a Russian attorney in June in Trump Tower. And so when we put all the pieces together, the story seems pretty straightforward. There's so much lying going on. Trump himself has been lying actively and aggressively in ways that are public record right now. For the public, the question is, why lie? If you didn't do anything wrong, why lie? And how are we going to believe that your son was doing something you didn't know he was doing when your actual campaign was primarily led by your family? So I think those parts of the story are fairly clear. I don't think the American public, as we've seen from the most recent polling, believes Donald Trump tells the truth. Only 13% of Americans believe that he tells the truth. I think over time, this really starts to erode politically for the Republicans. And I think the problem for our country is we have to be very careful how far we let it go, because we have institutions of government that need to work, that we need to protect if we're going to have a democratic process.
As we often say when Maya Wiley finishes a breakdown, Calero como agua. I think you put it very well. Stay with me. I have something else to ask you about Howard Dean and Clarence Page. Thank you. We're going to turn immediately right now to another important story and the journalist who helped start it all. New York authorities cuffed and charged Harvey Weinstein today. I'm about to speak with investigative reporter Megan Twohey. She broke the Weinstein story for the New York Times in October, and she's here with me right now. Let me explain the legal news, though. Weinstein charged with 3 counts of rape and sexual assault. He turned himself in today. Now, the once powerful mogul was booked, charged, and let out in handcuffs. He did not take questions. Inside the courtroom, meanwhile, prosecutors laying out in general terms the case they will later have to prove in detail, the judge ensuring that defendant Weinstein also understood his bail agreement.
This defendant used his position, money, and power to lure young women into situations where he was able to violate them sexually.
You violate any of the conditions in the order of protection, you're subject to arrest. You understand that?
Over 90 women have publicly accused Weinstein of various kinds of assault. Today's charges stem from just 2 of them for 2 counts of rape and 1 count of first-degree sexual assault. The state alleging that he held one woman against her will and forcibly had sexual intercourse with her while she did not consent, and grabbed a woman to physically force her into oral sex. Now take a look at this. New York's Attorney General resigning recently because of his own assault allegations. That's the context for what women are facing in New York. It was a different prosecutor, the Manhattan DA, who also initially took a lot of heat for not dealing with this case and charging Weinstein originally in 2015. Weinstein's lawyer, though, previewed a defense today that tries to cast Weinstein as a purveyor of bad behavior on the, quote, casting couch, but not a criminal.
My job is not to defend behavior. My job is to defend something that is criminal behavior. Bad behavior. Mr. Weinstein did not invent the casting couch in Hollywood, and to the extent that there is bad behavior in that industry, that is not what this is about. Bad behavior is not on trial in this case. It's only if you intentionally committed a criminal act, and Mr. Weinstein vigorously denies that.
Weinstein's accusers had a different message today.
This is a big strike into the heart of abuse of power, and this shows people worldwide, which is what I was hoping the whole time, that this cannot and will not stand.
Megan Twohey, that investigative reporter, joins me now. When you worked on this story and published it in October, did you expect this to happen today?
I did not. I did not. When my reporting partner Jody and I began our investigation in basically the spring of 2017, we were constantly looking into the eyes of victims who were just terrified to come forward and go on the record. And I don't think that anybody from the victims up through us, the reporters, ever expected that we'd see Harvey Weinstein today in handcuffs in court.
When you talked to them, what did your reporting suggest they were most afraid of? Harvey Weinstein is someone who has relationships with the current president, Donald Trump. He had relationships with the Clintons and throwing his money around. He has relationships with media moguls, business elites, political elites. He employed private security. What scared them most?
Yeah. Well, I think that few people understood the various levels of protection that he had built around him over the years, the kind of complicity machine and various enablers who had risen to the occasion and helped him cover up his pattern of misconduct. I mean, over the recent months, we've realized that there were high-powered lawyers who came in to help him pay hush money to women who made claims against him over the years. There were, in fact, these private investigators who were dispatched to dig up dirt on the accusers and also on the reporters who were hot on his trail. And he absolutely did have relationships with people in the media industry that, instead of covering him, were basically also helping to protect him. And so for all these reasons, he had really, for like year after year, decade after decade, appeared as untouchable, that he would, because of all his celebrity and power, never go down, and that it would be the women who would suffer damage to their careers if they spoke out.
The NYPD was on this. There was this leaked Sting audio recording, which came out in the same period when you were doing this reporting. Let's take a listen to that now.
Why yesterday you touched my breast?
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that. Come on.
Are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to that.
I won't do it again. Come on. Sit here. Sit here for a minute, please.
No, I don't want to.
If you do this now, you will never no. Fine. Never call me again. Okay? I'm sorry. I promise you I won't do anything.
I know, but yesterday was too much.
Guys, come in. I will never do another thing to you. 5 minutes. Don't ruin your friendship with me for 5 minutes.
I know, but it's kind of like, it's too much for me. I can't.
Please, you're making a big scene here.
No,
please.
but I want to leave.
Okay, fine.
What do you hear on that recording, and what does it tell you about the investigative process?
Yeah. So the district attorney's office that brought charges against Weinstein today in these two cases that are completely separate from that, also in 2015 was brought a criminal case by the cops. There was a woman who had met an Italian model who had gone to Weinstein's office for a business meeting, and with hours went to and reported to the police that she'd been groped by him, that he had tried to sexually abuse her. She wore that wire. She got what, by many sort of interpretations, sounds like a confession, and yet the district attorney's office didn't bring charges. And so the office has come under a lot of criticism for that, especially in recent months when all of these other allegations have come out against him. And so I think that the office was under intense pressure to make sure that it did its job this time around.
Megan Twohey, who has literally been a part of this story since you broke it, thank you for coming on The Beat tonight. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Ahead on The Beat, we have a very special guest, fashion icon and former Vogue editor-at-large Andre Leon Talley. Jones Fallback Friday, which should be good. But first, you may have noticed, if you're on the internet, Roger Stone has been repeatedly attacking me personally in my reporting. I'm not going to respond to the personal part, but we do have a very special report about Stone emails and why his